Welcome everyone to the next edition of our 49er Industry Chat. My name is Noemi Guevara. I'm the Director of Alumni Engagement. And as we welcome everyone into the room, we're very thankful and grateful that you're able to join us today. And we're very excited for our guest speaker today. We'll continue to pause as we welcome people in. Enjoy. Well, thank you. Well, I guess as people come in, we'll get started. Again, very excited to have our guest speaker today, as our chat is titled Serving Those Who Serve, Leading Mental Health Support for Veterans and Military Families. We're very thankful to Dr. Blas Villalobos for joining us today. And to get started, I'll go ahead and read his bio before we start the conversation. Dr. Blas Villalobos is the CEO of Centerstone's Military Services, leading mental health and substance use disorder support for veterans, active duty military, and their families. With over 15 years of experience, he previously served as Director of Veterans Affairs at Chapman University and held roles with the City of Los Angeles and U.S.VETS. A proud U.S. Marine Corps combat veteran, Dr. Villalobos also serves on the California Community College's Board of Governors and Cal Bright College Board of Trustees. He earned degrees from Long Beach City College, CSULB, and USC, and has been recognized with numerous awards, including induction into the Long Beach City College Alumni Hall of Fame and recognized as one of our 49 under 49 alumni honored by CSULB. It's my honor today to welcome Dr. Blas Villalobos to the 49er Industry Chats.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you for having
Blas,
me.
for joining us today. And we're very excited to spend 45 minutes talking about your journey through CSULB and just life in itself.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Wonderful. So I think we'll start right at the beginning. Uh, Wanted to ask, can you share a little bit about your background and then maybe your journey right through um, joining the military, attending LBCC, and then transferring into CSULB?
Of course. So I grew up in Mexico, I was born in Mexico. I was 5 or 6 years old when my parents moved us to West Texas. So I grew up in West Texas, in a very small town in West Texas called Denver City. I like to joke with people and tell them that it's so flat out there that your dog can run away. You can probably keep an eye on it for like 2 weeks. So there's nothing out there, but very small town, very great people. I was in seventh or eighth grade when I decided that I would join the military to earn my place in my new country. And when I first thought about it, the reason behind it was, well, I just want to be in the military. But really, it really evolved into that, I want to earn my place here. It's my new country. I'm being given new opportunities to do better in life. My parents sacrificed so much for us coming here, and so my priority was to earn my place here. And after high school, I joined the Marine Corps. Ended up in the Marine Corps 4 years. I moved to California because of the Marine Corps. I did one tour in Iraq, and right before I left the Marine Corps, I was driving by Long Beach City College, and I'll never forget. I remember thinking, if I ever go to college, this is where I want to start. And that turned out to be the case. So I went to Long Beach City College and then transferred to Cal State Long Beach in 2009, right after my daughter was born. So my daughter was a baby when I started my academics at Cal State Long Beach in 2007.
Wonderful. And during your time at LBCC, is there anything that you would like to highlight that made an impact as you have, transitioning from being in the military and now going into that education kind of journey?
Of course, I can tell you this much. Transitioning from the military can be a very isolating and difficult time for any service member and their families as well.
Right.
In my experience, my personal experience was very difficult because I went back to my hometown and I really have nobody to talk to about my service or anything that I was experiencing as a result of my combat experience. When I came back to California and I met with the certifying official at Long Beach City College, I learned that he was a 20 plus year Air Force retiree. Alan,
Wow.
I'll never forget his name. And he set me down, walked me through the entire process of getting my benefits. And I think that was the very first time I actually spoke to someone about my service and the resources I needed to be successful at Long Beach City College. And he was able to set that up for me. Eventually, I met people like Frank Mangivar, who was the new certifying official, other student veterans on campus. It was a very tight community. And everywhere I went on campus, if I had a question or I needed resources, I remember talking to someone who was able to point me in the right direction. So that made it very easy for me to stay in college and then eventually even consider going beyond the 2 year level. Because I there was a time there when I considered just dropping out and going back to the military. And it was another student veteran who actually pulled me aside. He was a work study student at the time and said, let's just walk through your schedule. Let's try to figure out what you need to try and get your feet wet, try to get you used to the new, this whole new path, and then we'll go from there. And he was a reason, probably one of the main reasons why I stayed, along with all the support that I received from staff and faculty at Long Beach City College.
Wonderful. And then you come to Cal State Long Beach, right? But I think before we move on to your experience at Cal State Long Beach, you kind of point out the importance, right, of the services that whether LBCC or CSUOB has for our veteran services, our counseling, right? The importance of reaching out, right, and asking and just getting information is so important, right? And just because there's always someone that's willing to help or just give you good advice, right, to continue on.
Yes, and I remember when I first walked on campus, I was nervous, of course, going from a 2 year school to a 4 year school. And the school president walked into one of our sessions and he's talking about the work that we were going to do and how, our grades were not going to be the same as in the community college system. And so I was a little nervous about that. But I sit down with the certifying official at Cal State Long Beach, talked about the major I was pursuing, and it was the same experience, right? Somebody who was very helpful, walked me through the entire process, what I needed to be successful on campus, and even the staff. I was actually looking through my contacts, and her name was Kimberly Shelling, who was one of my psychology program faculty or staff members or professors, I should say. And when she found out I was a veteran and I was having some transition issues, she took the time to actually talk to me about it and just help me, you know, talk about and really just develop a new perspective on where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. And so from the staff to the faculty, everyone was very helpful as well. And really that made a big difference in my life and in my academic pursuits. Because even after going through Long Beach City College, once I got to Cal State Long Beach, my first thought was, there's no way I can do this in 2 years, right?
Right.
And they pushed me through it, and I actually did very well when I was there. But there is no way I would have known that had I not had a conversation with several individuals, starting with the certifying official at Cal State Long Beach, who I believe she's still there,
Right.
helping veterans, which is incredible.
Absolutely. You kind of answered my next question, but it's going to be like, what was your student experience like at CSULB? Did you join any clubs? Did you do any activities? And you just mentioned the professor that made an impact, but anything else on your experience through Cal State Long Beach?
I wish when I look back, I wish I had. My daughter was a baby when I started at Cal State Long Beach in 2007. And it was very difficult for me to stay on campus once my
Right.
classes were completed. But I did try, and I spent some time at the Nugget, right? I spent some time with friends. on campus, going to the library, making sure that I was taking care of what I needed to take care of, because I had there was a sense of urgency on my part to make sure I was successful to be able to care for my daughter.
Great.
And being able to spend some time on campus, extracurricular activities, whether that was going to a basketball game or just anything that was outside of just going to class and then going home. I try to do as much as I could, which is not very often, but I do remember that adding to my positive experience at Cal State Long Beach. And, just thinking, man, this is exactly what school is all about, right? Being able to go to events and talk to people, make friends. But then, of course, there's the reality of, well, you have a baby that you got to take care of. And so, yes, balance it out, but at the same time, make sure that you're taking care of yourself and you're experiencing some of that
Great.
as you go through school.
Cool. So I know you had a family, like many of our students do have families. Did you did you have an internship while you were earning your bachelor's degree? Because I know your major was psychology, and that's so important, right, to have that hands-on experience as you go through that program.
Not an internship, but I did work as a work study student at Long Beach City College, and I started working
Okay,
as a work study student there. I think it was the spring of 2004 or summer of 2004. But because of my veteran benefits, I was able to work in the VA office and provide services for others who needed help with their benefits. And so that was to me that was my job, right?
great.
Helping other veterans and military family members get their benefits. And I was able to do that through my time at Cal State Long Beach, but at Long Beach City College. Fortunately, I did not have an opportunity to take on an internship. That didn't happen for me until I was at USC for my master's program.
Okay, great. So now you graduated, you have a family. What was that pivot, right, from you graduating from Cal State Long Beach? I don't want to say it was going to be your first job because you already had other roles, but what was that transition from graduating? Where did you decide, or how did you decide that you were going to pursue a master's degree after graduating Cal State Long Beach, or did you have a pause in between?
That's a loaded question. No pause in between. Once I started, I didn't stop at all until I finished my master's and then took a break before my doctorate. But um, you know, getting a little personal, when I first came back from the service and I was dealing with, all the combat trauma that veterans may experience while in the service, I had a situation where I just couldn't see myself here anymore. And so I had a failed suicide attempt. Came back to California, obviously received help, got better, but that stuck with me. And as I lost a few more friends to suicide, I realized that one, I was not the only one dealing with things like that. But also it was a much bigger problem than I realized. And I developed an interest well, I was already very interested in psychology. In fact, my primary goal, my ultimate goal was to be a clinical psychologist, but that shifted to working directly with the veteran population and just try to figure out a way to help veterans, military family members, offer them the resources and the services they need so that they wouldn't go through what I went through. And during my second to last semester, this was November 2008 at Cal State Long Beach, I heard of a position at a local nonprofit called U.S.VETS, and it was an outreach position, and it was the very first position of its kind. It was to deal directly with homelessness and the Iraq and Afghanistan veteran population. So that was my very first career job, if you will. When I started that position, I learned so much about what was going on with veterans not just with mental health, but also homelessness, unemployment, drug abuse, and addiction. And I developed even more interest in working with the population. And every time, one thing I noticed is every time I came up with some sort of random idea that I thought would improve the way I was doing my work. At some point, somebody would say, "Well, you don't have the degree for that. What do you know?" right? Or
Mm,
you're an outreach worker, what do you know? And so
mhm.
that just pissed me off. And so the more it pissed me off, the more I wanted to make sure that my academics reflected my experience and that my experience reflected my academics. And I continued to go to school, got promoted to a case manager position. So I was helping veterans who were homeless transition out of homelessness and into, leading a successful and happy life. And after I received my master's degree, that it became clear, one, that I was not going to be a very good therapist. My first two interns, or my first two clients as an intern, were combat veterans. And I remember going home thinking, there's no way I can listen to that for years and years, right? I'm not
Right.
going to be helpful. Um, and knowing that I wouldn't be helpful in that way, I shifted my focus to macro work. And I figured if I can't provide the clinical work myself, then why not manage the clinics or the programs that actually provide the services? And this was a conversation I had with my mentor at the time to try and figure out that, or to try and figure out a way to stay within the veteran space and not give that up, but also, fill in my bucket and making sure that what I was doing was helpful and fulfilling and rewarding, but most importantly, was actually making a difference for those that we were serving.
Absolutely. And I think you mentioned something, right, that I think we could share with the students or the recent alums that watch this, that sometimes there is no clear path, right? And it's okay to pivot, right? And test it out and find out what really is a passion to you, like you said, right? Diving more into more of the macro work than macro micro, because that wasn't gonna be for you. And it's okay to do that.
It is absolutely. If anything, I mean, if you're somebody who's interested in working with a specific population, I truly believe that we owe it not to just ourselves, but also to the population we want to serve, to make sure that what we're doing is being done with their best interest in mind. Yes, you make sacrifices, of course. Many of us know that starting in the behavioral health field is not, it's not a lucrative position
No,
or career at all.
it's work done with
Um,
the heart.
it really is, right? But also, in my case, understanding that, yes, I was not making a lot, but it was enough to provide for my kid,
Right.
which gave me the opportunity to stay in the field. And I chose that. I had plenty of opportunities to go do something else that maybe paid a little bit more than that. But I really wanted to work with the veteran population. And for me, it was figuring out the balance between the two, right? How do I provide for my family while I stay in the field and gain the experience I need to move up within this field and then eventually lead programs? And as a conversation that I had several times with my mentor, every single time I thought about just doing something else, because I would hear of a friend who was in the clinical space, but then decided not to do it because they didn't pay very much, and then they moved on and did something else, and they were doing better. So you see that every now and then, and you think, well, maybe I should be doing something else, right? Why am I doing this? But I think the more I interacted with the clients, the more I saw how much of a difference we were making as an organization, not just an individual. The more attracted I was to it, but also looking at my mentor, he's a Vietnam era veteran, combat veteran, who just retired this year. But he was the CEO of the nonprofit that I started working for. And I remember thinking, well, clearly there's a path we can follow that can lead to success, because here's a combat veteran with an MSW from USC as well, who's the CEO of a nonprofit organization helping veterans and military families. So there was a path to that level of expertise and success. And that's what really helped me stay in the field. And every time I consider going and doing something else, I thought, well, if I really want to work with a veteran population, if I really want to become an expert in the field, the only way to do it is this way, right? And then the rest will come. And eventually, things worked out. And um, I think I'm not necessarily a unique case, but I don't think there are that many of us who actually started at the very bottom and moved up to a position like this that can say, "Man, I remember what being an outreach is like. That
Right.
was tough." And that that really makes it even more exciting for me.
Absolutely, because you know every step, right, that your team is going through and you lived it, right? It's that lived experience. And I just want to remind everyone that's tuned in, if you have any questions for Blas, please put them in the Q&A box so he could answer them today. But you talked about mentorship, right? You having a mentor. I want to ask, like, how important is it to have a mentor in your field? And who is your mentor?
Um, I don't think I can stress enough how important it is to have a mentor. When when I think back to my time at Long Beach City College, I had unofficial mentors, and they probably didn't even know that I was looking at them as mentors. But I knew people at Cal State Long Beach who were student veterans, and I would talk to them about their experience being at Cal State Long Beach, and that helped me personally, get through some of the challenging times. But as I grew in my academic career, I realized that having someone in the professional space, uh, specifically the area I was interested in, would be very helpful. And I learned that when I was when I was at USC in my master's program. I remember one of our professors saying, you should really identify somebody in that space. And my mentor was already mentoring me, if you will, but he officially became my mentor when I asked him during my master's program. And that is what I believe gave me that extra push when I was trying to make decisions on where to go, right? Well, I was a case manager, then manager, director, executive director, working directly for him. And as I started thinking about my career path and where I was going to go next, having those conversations with them, somebody who I reported to, but also mentor me, and being able to talk to that individual and have his support or guidance, and in telling me that, look, if you really want to do more for the veteran population, that may not happen here. So what's next, right? And so I started to look for positions that would allow me to do that, which is how I ended up at the mayor's office. But all these conversations took place with him. Um, and really just learning from him, not just about the work that we do, but also about what you need to do at a personal level to make sure that you're doing what's best, not just for you, but also the population that you serve. And his name is Steve Peck. Retired this year. Um, Probably, I would say. It's crazy. I get a little emotional when I think about him. Um, the most influential person in my professional career.
That's wonderful. And that
So,
impact, right, that he changed maybe your journey, right? And just having that person you could talk about. Because I think of us, right? You you're first gen, like I am first gen,
mhm,
and majority of our students are first generations, and we don't have that professional example, right, in our family. So leaning into these mentors is very important, right, to help us grow and just learn from their lived experiences, right?
absolutely. My parents did the best they could, and they set me up for success. All things considered, it was a rough upbringing, low income. I
Right.
mean, so many people can relate to that. But they
Absolutely.
gave me the best opportunities they could, and it was
Hmm.
up to me to take those opportunities and do something with them, which is, what I had to do. I mean, I owed it to my parents to do something with those opportunities. But when I met my mentor and I started looking at it from a career perspective, um, I knew right there and then. Obviously, I can't talk to, my friends because they're not at that level. I can't talk to my family members. They're not at that level. But having
Right.
somebody who was willing to mentor me and really teach me what he knew.
Hmm.
But I think it's what I learned from him that he didn't intend to teach me, right? It's just observing what he used to do, um, how passionate he is and was and continues to be for the populations that we serve. That made a big difference because he was just being who he was.
Right.
as passionate as he was, and not realizing that I was actually paying attention to that, or that other people were paying attention to that. So that really was to me a good example of someone leading by example, and leading from the front, right? And that taught me. I mean, I credit him with knowing everything I know, thanks to him. Um, what's scary is the fact that he actually mentioned that last year, and that put a lot of pressure on me. But learning from individuals like that,
Right.
and really just dedicating, knowing that you're dedicating your life to serve others, wherever that may take you. Once you realize that, and you just get going, having that mentorship in place, having a network in place makes a big difference.
Absolutely. So you're working, right, various positions. At what point do you feel like you needed that doctorate? And also, I should say congratulations, right? You're one of our few Latinos that have a doctorate, Dr. Blas Villalobos, and we're so proud, that you are our alum. But how did you make that decision that to continue in this field, you needed that doctorate degree?
Um, I would say just all the meetings and events that I was able to attend. Um, I remember walking into several meetings where the expert in the room was somebody with a doctorate degree. And that doctorate degree could have been in underwater basket weaving, right? But they were the experts in the room because they had a doctorate degree. But there were several occasions when I walked into a meeting and I saw somebody with a doctorate degree, in either a PsyD or a PhD, somebody who had a doctorate degree in that specific, that was related to that specific field, to the field that I was in. And I remember how knowledgeable they were, and how much more they were actually able to accomplish because of that degree. And so I got to a point where I thought to myself, if I really am looking at taking this to the next level, and I'm really interested in at some point leading an organization, and doing more for the population, then I think it's going to be, a doctorate is necessary for me to accomplish that. And I was able to do that. Now, it doesn't apply to every field, obviously, but in my case, I saw that, and I realized how necessary it would be. Because now you have all the experience, but unfortunately, it still happens, right? When you walk into a room, you're the one with a master's degree, somebody else has a doctorate, and it's like, well,
Doctorate.
who are they going to listen to more, right? That's just
Right.
the sad reality, in the world we live in. But I noticed that, and I thought, well, I have the experience already. I'm already running and managing programs. I put together, I started programs from scratch. What am I missing that can help me take this to the next level? And that was a doctorate.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you for that. And again, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A box. So now pivoting a little bit to today, right? And bringing it back to your title of, leading mental health support for veterans and military families. What does your typical day look like as the CEO for Centerstone Military Services?
Oh, that depends on the day. It can be, a simple day just full of meetings, right? Where we're talking about, for today, for example, we're talking about state appropriations in the state of Tennessee, and how to request more funding so we can serve more veterans and more military family members. Um, so it can be as simple as that, or as hectic as 2 weeks ago when I was in DC, and we had back-to-back meetings with legislative offices talking about veteran suicide prevention, and HR 2284, I think is the name of the bill that was introduced, to help create a pilot program that would fund nonprofit organizations that provide mental health services for veterans, right? And advocating for that. So it could be a very simple, very easy day, or it can be a very hectic day where you're making actual, you're meeting with legislators and decision makers, and you have to make one or two decisions a day, But those one or two decisions can impact the lives of thousands of people you serve. So um, it's um, it's definitely a privilege to be in this position. I absolutely love it. Not the easiest position I've had, but it's definitely the one that checks all the boxes for me, where it's rewarding, it makes me happy, and it allows me to do more for the population and for more of the population than my previous one. So this is the first time I've hit all three in my career. Um, but it can be lonely as well. I talk to my friends and say, "Oh my God, you're a CEO, you're traveling all the time." And I often take a picture of my hotel room window. And I'm like, look, yes, it's exciting and it's rewarding and it's an honor to be in this position. But at the same time, you don't have the luxury of hanging out with people like other people do, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like almost you reach the top and you're by yourself.
Right.
So if you have an issue, who do you talk to? You can't talk to the people who you work with, right? And so that's again going back to the mentorship. That's where that
Right.
mentorship really comes into play for me. Because I can call my mentor and say, "Hey, man, I'm dealing with this. What do you think?" Or I'm dealing with an issue with uh, you know, uh, um, a state appropriation. You dealt with it before. How did you deal with it? What can I do? What do you think? Right. And so that makes a big difference. But it's exciting, but it's also it can be a, a lonely but very rewarding place to be.
Wonderful. And I was diving into a little bit on the website, right, for Centerstone, and it looks like a lot of their locations are not in California. So how you're serving a lot of families out there, right? How is that I guess how do you manage, right, being out of the your home base, right? You're traveling a lot, but you are working with families that are, in those locations. And then I guess for like, how do you manage your team? Because it sounds like you might be a little bit more remote.
It is. Well, first of all, I have an incredible an incredible team. My CEO, Anna Golets. I mean, when we talk about, a chief operating officer, I mean, she's the definition of it, and is incredible. So I can travel for work. I can, be in multiple places in different days, and I know that she's taking care of everything within the organization, so I don't have to worry about that.
Mhm.
Um, and we work very closely together as well to make sure that, when we're talking about our strategic plan, I don't just create it. I actually talk to her, talk to our director, and some of our other staff, and we create this together along with our board too. And so that makes it a lot easier. But you're right, the Centerstone as an enterprise has locations in Illinois, Indiana, Tennessee, and Florida. Centerstone Military Services as its own business unit we have over 2,000 clinical providers in all 50 states. And these are all individually licensed clinicians who understand military culture. They work directly for us, and they are the ones who are providing all these behavioral health services. In fact, last year we provided approximately 55,000 hours of therapeutic services in
Wow.
about 24 countries to close to 7,000 clients. And that was in all 50 states in 24 countries. So
Wonderful.
the management part is not very difficult when you have an incredible team doing the
Absolutely.
work that they do, and really keeping you in line sometimes as well. That makes it so much easier. So it helps that our population is all over the place too.
Absolutely. What is the most challenging part of your role?
I would say making decisions that will impact the clients we serve. There are funding opportunities that we pursue on a you know fiscal year basis, if you will. There are pieces of legislation that we're advocating for or against. Trying to manage that and identify those priorities, which really, when you take a look at what we do for the population, everything out there is almost everything is a priority, right? So how do you decide on which one you're going to invest your time and resources to make sure that you make a difference, knowing that that may leave a small group of people behind. And so those are tough decisions, but also, decisions that may impact my staff. I mean, they do so much work, and making sure that when I make a decision, I take into account how that decision will impact the workload of my staff. Because the last thing you want to do is burn them out, right? I mean, they're human, just
Right.
like the rest of us. And as incredible of a job as they do have limitations, and we want to make sure that we're not placing a much bigger burden on them than they can handle. Although I can say that we've pushed it to the limit, and they're still going, but
Right.
still making sure that they are taken care of, and that you have an environment where they trust you as a leader, but also you trust them as the leaders that they are.
And creating that, work-life kind of balance culture, right, within the organization is key as well.
It is. I think that's a little bit harder for me when we're talking about leading by example, right?
Mhm.
Trying to take some time off to spend with a family. I mean, I have a 17-year-old. Well, my daughter's now 17-year-old, and my wife and I are now having a boy in July. And so as we get closer
Congratulations.
to that, I appreciate it. As we get closer to, let's say, my daughter going to college in the fall, and our baby boy being born. It's just trying to figure out a way to balance it out so that you're not on the road every single week, but when you do have to travel that often, making sure that when you're home, you're present, right? So I try that. I don't think I'm doing a very good job at it still, but
Mhm.
but making sure that when you're home, you're present, right? And you're actually spending time with the family, making sure that that time um, really um, fills those gaps, right? I would
Right.
say.
Wonderful. And I think still on your current role, and I think you talked about it a little bit previously, but what is the most rewarding of your current role today?
I would say um, n not knowing. Well, first of all, the work that we do, that's rewarding. Knowing that we are providing care that changes people's lives. That's something that is so rewarding. And it really does give you a boost every day when you're having a tough time. Um, because the work that we're doing is making a difference. We know that. But at the same time, is making sure that the work that we do is being done to the standard that it needs to be. So, I often tell people, look, yes, we're a nonprofit organization. We've taken on the responsibility to provide mental health services for veterans and military families, and members of our active duty reserves and all that. We don't take that responsibility lightly, and I don't think anybody should. If you're going to take on the responsibility to do that, which is life-changing work or life-saving work in many cases, then you better make sure that you're doing it right. And that to me is one of the most rewarding things, knowing that the work we do is making a difference. Um, we'll never know how many veterans' lives we've saved, right? We've had veterans who may have been, you know, suicidal or thinking about it, or even at a point where they are ready to act on it, right? And then we provide services and they get better. Now we'll never know how many of those there are, and that's okay with me. But knowing that there are people out there who are using our services and are getting better, that to me is the best reward you can ever get. Now, when somebody comes to you and shares a story with you, I'll be sharing a story about that next month at NatCon. We'll be on a panel, and I'll share a story about that is actually a personal story from a friend of mine. Um, that to me, when I heard about what he went through,
Mhm.
and us being very good friends, and me not knowing what he was going through, right?
Right.
And then only to learn about him getting better after three failed suicide attempts because he received services from us. And I'm thinking, well, hell, man, we're like best friends, right?
Right.
And you're not telling me what's going on. I learn about it after the fact.
Mhm.
So knowing that he was able to trust us with those services and that help is rewarding, although we're still working on the trying to, talk to people piece.
Absolutely, absolutely. Has artificial intelligence have any, and is it part of your field today? Do you see it becoming part of the work that incorporated into the work you do today?
It does. Centerstone, the mothership, if you will, we have a research institute, and that research institute has worked on simulation training. So these are, behavioral health best practices that are utilized on a daily basis, but is giving students and even staff, clinicians, the opportunity to practice those best practices, those sessions with an individual, having that recorded by AI, right? And giving them active feedback on how they're actually doing. So that's something that I'm very excited about. Predictive analytics is something that I'm really interested in. I'm not the expert in that whatsoever, but I'm really fascinated by the fact that you may be able to take AI and have it analyze health records and then tell you whether somebody's at risk of either mental health issues or any other health condition or not based on that information. And so there's so much that is going on with AI. There's so many people who are much smarter than me and have a lot more experience working with it. But from my perspective, looking at how that can improve our work and the services we provide, it really does make things very exciting.
That's so exciting to hear. I think we just had, I know we have a couple minutes left. Can't believe 45 minutes went on by. One of our
Fast.
students, Ricardo, is a current social work student at the VA, and he's seeking a mentor, and he's asking if you're taking applications. Um,
I
but
don't, I don't,
I
yeah, I don't
think
take applications per se, but I'm happy to have a conversation with them for sure.
right, and that's one of my questions. If any of our students would like to connect with you, are you okay if we share maybe your LinkedIn, right? And they could put in
Yeah.
a comment in there that they saw this recording and would like to connect with you. Would that be okay with you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful. And then I guess to close us out today, any advice you want to share with our students and our alumni, whether it's if they're veterans or if they're seeking a career right in the mental space and supporting our veterans or in any of that work that you'd like to share.
Yes, I would say, first and foremost, figure out exactly what you want to do, right? Obviously, if you're in the behavioral health space, there are so many different populations you can work with, so much work that can be done in that space. So the sooner you figure out what it is that you want to do, the sooner you can start focusing on that. Definitely develop, if you don't have a network already, start working on your network, start working on mentorship, identify somebody that you can relate to, have a conversation with. I'm happy to have a conversation with anyone here. Um, I have mentees who are working their way through this process or have already graduated, they're clinical directors, or there are specific level now, and we still communicate with each other because we understand how important it is, and it's a two-way street, right? How important it is for both of us, for all of us to communicate with each other and continue to grow that network. You'd be surprised that the network piece, the mentorship is very important. The network piece is vital. Having peers you can reach out to for support on a specific initiative or legislation or grant that you're working on, and having that individual on the other end respond and make things happen for you and vice versa, right? That's what it comes down to very often. And so just, stay true to it. If once you know what you want to do, just keep going at it. Things get difficult. There are going to be several times, hope not, but there may be several times when you may think, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore, or it's too difficult, or it's too emotionally challenging. If that's what you want to do, just keep at it. Those difficult times come and go. but the reward that you get out of it, it's, it stays with you forever. And so one day you wake up and you're thinking, man, they're paying me to do exactly what I love doing. Like, how incredible is that? I'm a big Formula One guy, and so the only thing I can compare it to is a driver who's getting paid to drive a car, and that's what he loves the most. So for me, being able to do this work, which I absolutely love, and then get paid for it, be able to make a career out of helping others, that's incredible. It's not for the money, obviously. That's not why any of us does this, but it definitely helps us keep our mind on serving those who need help, and that makes it a lot
Absolutely.
easier.
Wonderful. Yeah, someone once told me, right, like if you are doing what you're passionate about, it's not going to feel like work, right? You're going to get up every morning and be like, I am going into the office to do what I love every day, right?
Yeah, and it's true. Um, Even with all the travel,
Mm-hmm.
it's difficult. I love traveling for work, right? I mean, that really does make up for me a little bit, for missing my family. Because I'm going from one great thing at home with my family to another great thing, work related, where it does help make up for some of that loneliness. But it's great. You get to do what you love. You get to provide for your family, and most importantly, you get to serve clients who need it, and you can make a difference in their lives.
Wonderful. Well, Blas, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate you sharing your journey, right? And thank you for being open to talk to our students about whether it's being a veteran and possibly networking or mentoring them. So we're very thank you for you. Congratulations on your baby. Very excited to welcome another future beach grad to the family. And to everyone watching, thank you so much. We will be uploading this video to our YouTube channel, but you could also visit our website at csub.edu/alumni. Thank you and go beach.
Thank you.